Welcome back. You're still watching News Night here on Arise News. With me, I'm Maka Udewalker.
And I am Christian Nogodo. We're live in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Professor Abiodun Adeniyi is here to help us dissect the thriving business of banditry, terrorism, and kidnapping. Prof, you heard Nisi Gabriel there in that special report, and you heard, some of the resource persons talking about the kingpins of these bandits coming from Niger Republic, taking, Nigeria's land space and raining real terror on the people. Big business?
Yeah, there are so many talking points around it, really, But of course, yes, it's a criminal, it's an economy, but it's a criminal economy. It's an illegitimate economy. It's an economy that is not sustainable. It's an economy that cannot stand. If all the right policies, or if all the policies towards eradicating them are properly executed. I do not also forget that the emergence of this kind of economy, is a reflection of the problems in the legitimate economy. That legitimate economy that is somewhat exclusive, that is not inclusive enough, that is not integrated enough, such that a wider section of the populace will benefit from it, and the fact that they're not benefiting
into poverty.
Yeah, and the fact that they're not benefiting is reflected in joblessness, poverty, like you just mentioned, result also affecting the mental state of sections of the citizens, leading to nihilism and a situation where the thing that they know that the humankind holds there, is constantly being used to blackmail us, which is death, which is life, and living. Of course, they know that the average sane person want to live for as long as possible, but these are nihilists who don't care. They know we're concerned about this, but in their own case, they probably have had some kind of inordinate resolution of these crises, of the human being within them, and of course they are now using it to blackmail us, and of course they are also helped by the fact that arms and ammunition is easily at their disposal, like we had we had the testimonial of one of the resource person there, that somebody bought a gun truck for 15 million from Niger Republic. Again, we have said our borders are very porous. There's infiltration of light and small arms, weapons. And of course, I don't believe that a gun truck is even a light weapon. It's rather a sophisticated one. So what is happening? Why is it impossible for us to interdict, the entrance of these equipment into this country? So what's the problem? Those are the many questions we have to ask.
Too many questions.
Cognizance of the fact that, like we have said severally, to resolve it with a function of short and long-term solutions.
Right.
So we have discussed these
those solutions is the reason why we have you in the studio. Yes, we know you're not a security expert, but you are a communications expert. And if you follow the trajectory...
I'm a communications student.
Yes. Well, if you follow the trajectory, in January, the federal government of Nigeria actually designated them as terrorists, talking about the bandits now. And one would have thought, that would have led to more quashing of them and maybe a reduction in not just bandit attacks, the killings, the maiming, and even the kidnappings. But at the end of the day, since that happened till now, if you look at, the records, so much money has gone into payment of ransom. More and more people have died, about 800 of them, just 1 month of September alone. So, looking at solutions, which way should people be looking at right now? Because they have been designated, but it seems like it's still ongoing and a thriving business for that matter.
But I think the designation of the criminals as terrorists, was also a strategic one, such that by the time they are neutralized and the military will want to describe it, of course we know what neutralization means. And when it happens en masse, there won't be any argument around human rights violation, because these guys actually practically declared war against the Nigerian state.
Amnesty International has soft pedal on that a bit now, neutralization, just like you said, just to buttress
which is very helpful. As it's a strategic one, and from then on, we cannot really say that the military hasn't upped their ante in terms of their continuous neutralization of these these bandits. But it's a continuous effort. It's something that cannot be resolved in the immediate circumstances, considering that it took a long time before the problem gested. It wasn't within a short time span. that it takes a long time for you to breed a criminal, really. And of course, our system has been described by criminologists as being criminogenic. And what brings about a criminogenic system? Nothing else other than hopelessness, through joblessness, a situation where you do not feel, you don't value life. And if you do not value life, you do not expect another person to value it. This is not a justification for it. We are only saying that, the contradictions in the political economy, it's a driver of criminality. And that's why we say short-term solution, long-term solution. In the short term, it's actually what the military is doing, kinetic, striking them, precision, and sometimes non-kinetic, negotiating with them, when you know that what is at stake is so huge. If you have to sacrifice lives in the bid to take out these terrorists, then you go negotiate with them. Of course, sometimes it can even be a question of wisdom. But the long-term solution, of course, is for us to pay attention to good governance, improve the number of people who have jobs, boost the economy, make people happier, give people more hope, improve level of illiteracy, level of understanding. Because when people degenerate to taking lives, it just means that there's something wrong with that kind of psychology. It's a dastardly psychology that takes time to breed.
Yes.
And of course, the society that is able to breed those kind of people is an unfortunate society.
Yes,
whether
indeed.
it is ideological or economical, as the case could be.
Yes, Professor Adeniyi, and we'll talk about the security architecture. For a while, varied solutions were proffered until the leadership said, go after the bandits, whether, from the air, land, and anywhere, and crush them. And some security experts say that was when we started seeing the changes. Can it be further than this?
Yeah, of course, it can be further than this. We have had improvements over the years, Christian, and of course, I know you agree with me on this, but the argument is always that it's been slow in coming, and we always thought that we can do more, because we're talking about the Nigerian state, the almighty Nigerian military, and we have ragtag army of bandits, terrorists, affecting us through guerrilla scorched earth tactics, a kind of war that is been described as asymmetric. And of course, arguments have been in circles that maybe the training does not really include so much of asymmetric warfare. It's about symmetric, warfare. So we just have new experiences, and we're trying to find our way around them, to learn and unlearn some of the things we have learned before and relearn, and probably to make further improvement. I imagine that there will be further improvement, but the improvement that can come essentially, apart from the one we have analyzed, asking us to boost our economy, create more jobs, is of course to use more sophisticated technologies, like I want to believe that they are presently using. Then of course I know that maybe drones can be very, very expensive. I'm not sure we are using more of that as well, because we know
the Nigerian military is, yes.
I
can
tell you.
I can tell
you. Lucky Rabo, not too long ago, they talked about the fact that technology has been deployed. But at the end of the day, Abiodun, you're talking about military solutions, but some would say that might not be enough.
Non-kinetic solution.
At the end of the day,
I'm talking about the mix of the two.
Okay, so now let's look at the fact that in the northwest, which is where banditry is most rife, porous borders, major challenge. Last year alone, over $1 billion was actually paid for ransom. So in terms of proffering solutions to the issue of banditry in Nigeria, what more should we be looking at, especially as it concerns foreign bandits who come in, perpetrate this act and go back unchecked through our borders?
Yeah, maybe we should mind our borders better, be concerned about interdicting the infiltration of these weapons, and of course what has happened with the alliances that sometimes we go into with these neighboring countries in terms of sanitizing their own enclave. Because if their enclave is relatively sanitized, they are not likely to rob us with their own imperfections. How about that? Then of course the question of overpopulation that we keep, that we're not really concerned about. What are the mechanisms that we can deploy to begin to think about it? If not at the level of enforcement, maybe at the level of admonition, talking to ourselves, sensitizing people, to bring to the world children that they can probably take care of, or maybe some kind of advisory population policy that will tell women the number of children that they can probably bear.
Prof, in the midst of the hopelessness, in the midst of the hopelessness and helplessness that you've painted, is that really feasible? Will it really sink in to the people that you're preaching this to?
Yeah, it is possible. There's nothing conscientization cannot do. There's nothing sensitization cannot do. And we have had many of these policies formulated in the past. Our bane is always execution, implementation, and consistency in this direction. Sometimes our approach is usually knee-jerk. We celebrate these policies, we launch them as programs, colorful events, and after events, then we'll go back home, we'll go to rest. It becomes business as usual. So we need some level of consistency, sustenance of policy direction so that we can have results at the end of the day. But governance is not just about enforcement. Moral suasion is also a factor, and there are some policies that you may not really be able to implement. It's going to be about advising people, convincing them, persuading them, because some of these attitudinal traits, patterns, are rooted in our cultures, in our religion, and in our history.
Right.
And people's worldview have grown to imbibe them. So you can only advise them, counsel them away from them, rather than thinking that we can enforce them. Christian and Amaka.
Absolutely. We have to look at solutions from every corner, beyond, the kinetic solutions being preferred.
That's right.
But we have to say thank you so much, Abiodun Adeniyi, for joining us tonight on the program, for actually having this conversation.